Welcome to the Calmer Self podcast. I'm Nadine. Join me to learn how to connect with the calmer version of yourself. I'll share with you my tips and coping strategies for reducing feelings of stress, overwhelm and guilt so that you can live a productive life with ease and joy. And there'll be inspiration from other wellbeing therapists, experts in relaxation and fellow calm crusaders. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of talking to the hugely talented Jonathan Hateley. Now, Jonathan is a sculptor, and as you can see, the people that are watching this, surrounded by some of your beautiful work. And as I say, I'm just so excited to be talking to you today. So welcome, Jonathan.
Hi, Nadine. Great to be here.
Lovely to speak to you. So as I say, I'm delighted to be chatting today because I find that your work is so inspirational to me. I create meditations around your work. They tune in with a lot of my sort of deep feelings and using nature and things like that. So that's what inspires me, and I'm very grateful for that. I'd just like to start by asking you what inspires you and what gives you your passion and your joy.
What inspires me? Well, nature chiefly. I started looking to, having read a book by Deepak Chopra, where he talks of everything being made of the same stuff. The molecules I'm talking about. And I kind of had the idea to do a figure that had, was reflecting nature in the figure, because we all, I think, perhaps take nature a bit for granted sometimes, and I kind of wanted to start reflecting it in my sculptures. So I did one of them, and it seemed to work out well, and it's been the thread throughout my work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I love that. I think, just so people know, there will be some people that just are listening to this, and you are surrounded by some of your beautiful sculptures, and we are going to be talking about them. But people that are just listening can actually look at your website, can't they, and actually see the figures that we're talking about, which is lovely. We have some beautiful figures surrounding you, don't we? And they have just lovely texture. You put some lovely things in, and we're going to talk about some of them in a bit more detail. I think what I call them, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, it's figurative sculpture, a lot of what you've got around you. But I know that you are inspired by nature, and you had this beautiful piece that I think you did in 2010 called 365, which was every day you took something from nature and you added to the sculpture, which I just think is so wonderful, isn't it, to be able to do that and to be so in tune and to notice things in nature and use them.
It was quite a discipline. I have to say that,
it was.
Doing a sculpture every day, and the winter months became problematic at times because nothing seemed to turn up at times that you wanted to sculpt. But it was chiefly going out for walks and recording what I saw either in photographs or bringing little bits back, and then sculpting them. All the 365 little sculptures all took their place on the big form, and that's what sort of got me sort of cemented in my mind that my work should centre around nature, at least for the most part, anyway.
No, I think that's beautiful, and like you say, quite a discipline to do every day, isn't it? And I know that you've got some on your YouTube channel about that, haven't you? Your work and everything. And I think you put a book together. You blogged about it, didn't you? And you put a book together as well, didn't you?
So this was all basically a recording of, a written recording of all the blog notes that I put on at the time, and along with the picture of each piece.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
because that's what I love about art, and the way that you can represent what's going on in the world and what's going on in life, and you can put it out there in a way that, for me, I don't really, because I'm not an artist, but it's lovely for me to see how you can express yourself in that way, and it's and like you say, with nature as well. And I know during lockdown you did a piece called Contemplations in Lockdown, didn't you, which again was reflecting the mood of everybody and how everyone felt. And I know that you asked people for inspiration, didn't you? You asked them to send you the words that they were
Yeah.
feeling at the time. And I've got to say now, my moment of joy was that you picked one of my words, which was birdsong. And for me, it was just the joy of listening to the birds. It helped me at a time. It was right at the start of lockdown, I think, wasn't it? And I've got to say, and you might have not even registered this, Jonathan, but actually you placed it on the thigh. The word actually was on the thigh, and the thigh is a place where we hold our anger. So I loved the fact that it was written there, because birdsong to me is a perfect antidote to anger. We can actually listen to birdsong and get the anger just goes, doesn't it? So for me, it was just perfect. And you might have done that subconsciously, you might not have known, but can you just perfect for me. And again, that lovely posture, it was a stretch of a thigh, and I thought, again, we can release our anger by stretching. So I just love that. So birdsong for me was a special moment. Thank you so much for including my word. But there was so much. Would you like to tell people a bit more about how that process was for you, because it took you quite a while, didn't it?
It did, yeah, and probably too long, because it was meant to sort of encapsulate the first period of lockdown anyway, and it sort of started to go a bit beyond that, but I did get it finished in the end. But
yeah,
it was basically to encourage people to give their thoughts and how it was affecting them on Facebook and Instagram. And each one that they suggested, I would then, we would go through choosing which ones we were going to put on there, and basically carve them in, and because it wasn't, you didn't know what was going to come in, it was really difficult to know how you were going to put each word next to another, and how you would get round the figure successfully and for it to work. But it worked, I think, in the end, and I kept changing into different typefaces, which allowed you to because I'd print out each word in a typeface that I could then copy and fit around each other as I went along.
Amazing. It just, to me, it sounds like such a process. I can't imagine how, because even if I write something, I quite often don't leave enough room. So I don't know how you manage that. All credit to you for getting that done. But a beautiful, beautiful piece of work that, again, people can see, can't they, on your website. So that is wonderful. And some of your other sculptures, as I say, I get inspired by your work so much because it's in tune with my creative process, which is the meditation. And I just feel that you've got, they're not with you there, but you've got a couple that are sunrise and sunset, which I really love, because I do meditations around getting a good night's sleep and a positive morning routine. And you always have a texture on your sculptures, don't you? And I think on those you've got circles, haven't you, which are representing the sun getting bigger and getting smaller. So would you like just to talk us through that and your process of actually how you pick what texture you're going to use on your sculptures?
Well, that's the biggest challenge of all, really, and that's waiting for an idea to drop. And sometimes you can struggle for an idea to come, and you just can't. You can sit there with a piece of paper and try and draw something, and it just won't happen. And then suddenly something just drops out of nowhere. You're given help from some other place, I think.
Yeah, I think there's more than we know, isn't there, thankfully, that helps us, inspires us, doesn't it?
I think so. And so that was a simple case of the idea coming, and then it's a case of how best to choose a pose that sort of echoes, the idea of sunset and sunrise. And for me, sunrise was somebody sort of stretching as they get up, and therefore, and the larger circles at the top gradually, the smaller circles at the bottom are gradually getting bigger as they go up. And sunset is a more reflective pose, and the smaller circles gradually get bigger as they go to our feet.
I love it. I so love it. There's more than I can imagine that goes into these works. And you've got one beside you, haven't you? I think is called Bud, isn't it? And I think, if I'm right, that is the texture on that is the underside of a leaf. Is that right? So you use that. And again, I just think it's perfect, isn't it? So explain that one a little bit, if you can.
It was just the idea of a bud opening, or rather a bud of sort of the potential to open, and so she's very much folded in on herself, and as you know, as a bud would, she will eventually open up. So it kind of makes me think of spring and
yes, there is that wonderful feeling, isn't it? A new life just ready to, like you say, grow. It's just, it encapsulates that so beautifully, which is lovely. I really do love that. And you've got what I kind of, perhaps I shouldn't pick a favourite, but you've got one, I think she is my favourite beside you, Transience, which is so beautiful. Lady there with her palms out there, she's so beautiful. And I was lucky enough to actually present a meditation using Transience, wasn't I, for the Pure Arts group that we're both part of. And what I love so much is, again, the texture and the fact that you have this person and the tree almost intertwined, you know. And again, a lot of my meditations are saying we're like a tree, we've got a trunk, we're strong, we've got roots, you know. And again, that posture of having the hands open, ready to receive, it just is so graceful and so beautiful. And I, as I say, I could do a meditation around it all the time. I so love that wonderful posture. So again, and you've got, I call her the sister of faith, where the hands are in, but again, that representing the tree. So again, if you could just explain a bit more about how that came about for you.
Well, this one, I mean, they're both basically based on Madame Butterfly.
Yes,
I used to work in the opera, in the English National Opera.
Brilliant.
And in fact, Madame Butterfly was the first opera that I worked on. Before this was made, there was talk about me exhibiting at Glyndebourne, and for whatever reason it didn't work out. But just as I left a meeting about that, I had the idea to do something based on Madame Butterfly, and it was another one that just dropped into place, that the cherry tree, which is very symbolic of Japan, and also for things being transient, that it just all fell together and made so much sense. Whereas faith is more about before the petals drop, and almost having faith that they won't, in a way. So that's the story, and it's kind of tied in with the story of Madame Butterfly.
Yes, I think it's so beautiful. And again, another place for your inspiration, isn't it, from your history and what you've done. And I know, I mean, I've commented before on the beautiful sort of forms that you have, you know, and I know you worked a lot with the ballet, didn't you? So that lovely human form in the postures that you have. Is that right? You worked with the ballet, didn't you?
Well, in the English National Opera, which was obviously predominantly opera, through the close season with the opera, they would always bring in a ballet company, and
brilliant.
They had the Bolshoi ballet there, and so we used to watch them. It's my only experience ever of watching ballet, actually, is seeing the Bolshoi and the Kirov ballet perform at the Colosseum, and we even had meals with them.
Oh, how lovely!
Much time. So
you're making me jealous now.
So it was a lovely experience, and I think all these things sort of definitely over the time filter in to your mind, and in some way come out in what you create.
It's lovely that you can express it, isn't it? And I just feel, as I say, you know, the way that you represent the human form, you know, is so beautiful, and so it's just perfect the way that I see it. So beautiful. And behind you, you've got another one which I love so much, called Releasing, which again, I just love that posture, and that, I mean, I do that a lot. I release a lot. I don't quite look the same as your beautiful figure there, but I do that a lot. And you've got that movement and that flow and that energy there, which is so beautiful. And am I right in thinking that is leaves on there, the representing the leaves, and you've got the wind?
It's just about renewing, and it is all about autumn and renewing and letting go more than anything. That was the idea behind it, and I had a lot of private messages come to me. One particularly, somebody who actually bought the sculpture had retired, and the day before and then the next day she woke up and saw a picture of Releasing, and couldn't believe that was exactly how she felt, having retired the day before.
That's
and
beautiful.
on that basis, she bought the sculpture.
Oh, it's a beautiful story, isn't it? And just perfect, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
because it is, nature always guides us, doesn't it? And I always say when the leaves are falling, that is our little prompt, isn't it, to go let things go and everything. And as I say, your beautiful sculpture there represents it so wonderfully for me anyway, and obviously for this lady that bought it too, which is wonderful. I love it so much. And you've got the one at the front there, the holding like that with the representing the weather. What's that one? What's the story with that one there?
That's winter facing, and that's basically that all the leaves, pretty much all the leaves have gone, and it's about holding yourself close and warm, and yeah, that's basically what it is.
But again, getting that perfect human form, because we do that, don't we? And the facial expression and everything is just so perfect, isn't it? So
I got my assistant to blow her cheeks out to put her face. Yeah, so lots of photos of her going like this.
I bet that was a lot of fun. But it just represents what we do all the time, doesn't it? It's such a perfect representation of how we hold ourselves and our expressions and everything. I love it so much. So what I'd like to talk to you a little bit about, Jonathan, is the creative process. You've explained a little bit about it, which is beautiful. But is it something, I mean, there's a lot of people now that use arts and crafts for mindfulness and for relaxing and calming. Do you find the creative process a relaxing thing? Do you find there is calmness in there, or do you find it a little bit of a struggle? How does it work for you?
I'm very much in the zone when I'm throwing clay on an armature, which is what we do, create an armature and then throw clay on to get the shape and form and everything, and it can be a very calm time, you know, when you're making the shape, and it's often a challenge to get the what you're after, and when you're really in the flow, it can be the most peaceful, wonderful time, but that isn't always. It's constant. It's constantly making decisions as you go along, and it's not a you know, you're always having to think as you go along. There's no doubt about that. So it can be a very difficult time as well. It can be challenging and quite often very frustrating. But I would say that the sculpting part, I'm probably at my calmest when I'm doing something. That is when it's the best time for me. When I'm thinking about the possibility of things, that's often a much more frustrating time, and time when anxiety can come in.
Yeah.
But the business side of sculpture is another matter altogether. That's something I find less enjoyable. But I have got a team behind me who help me with that.
That is brilliant. I mean, it is so necessary, isn't it? Like you say, you can be in the zone doing your little bit, but there's so much more around what you do and how you share it with the world. So I think it's really important, and it's good for people to hear, you know, that you recognise that, you know, asking for help, having a team around you. I know you've got your wonderful wife Serena who supports you and does a lot of work, doesn't she, with you? But it is important, isn't it, just to know that we can't do this on our own, can we? To ask for help is quite important. And I know you've talked about a little bit about anxiety and that kind of thing, and I know, like myself, you have suffered depression in the past, and it's one of those things. And I'd just like to sort of ask how you manage that, how you get some balance in your day-to-day life, sort of maybe talk us through a typical, if there is one, day in the life of Jonathan, how it works for you, how you get your balance, how you have that sort of light and dark, if you like.
Well, certainly in this time of the year, the day is balanced by a dog walk in the morning and the evening. That is an enormous help, and it's often when I cast off all my worries to my wife, who's also manages my business, and it's probably not so good for her, but at least for me, it gets it out before I go off to the workshop. And then at the workshop, I basically get on with the sculpture while my assistants go through the process of casting the additions of these, and I give my opinion where I can, and so on and so forth. But the idea of having these this team around me is so that I can get on with the sculpting, which is what I do best, and therefore it can work much better. It doesn't always work well all the time because time tends to be an issue, and we seem to be running out of it all the time with the pressures of when we've got to get a particular sculpture to a certain place, and also where I'm different to other sculptors is that I paint my sculptures, and so for every piece that's created, not only am I involved at the beginning with the sculpting side of it, but then at the end of it, when something's cast, time is taken up with the painting of them as well.
Yeah, I know. I didn't realise that, but yeah. So you're doing so much, aren't you? But like you say, you've got the people around you, and it is important, isn't it? And I love the fact that you have a doggy and doggy walk-ins. You know, for me, I've got 2 doggies, and it's a lifesaver, isn't it? To have that. Yeah. That's a discipline, isn't it? To go out, get away from everything for a little while with the dogs. You know, it's so lovely, isn't it? And I know one of your sculptures is it called Blighty, where it is a dog walker, which I just love because again it shows the weather and what we see in everyday life in this country, definitely, don't we? So I love that. But it is like you say, it's important, isn't it, to have that balance wherever you can. And like you say, there's never enough time. You've got deadlines and high pressure to what you're doing, isn't it? But it's lovely to hear that you have some moments of like focus and clarity there, which is beautiful. I love that. So I mean, would you say, I mean, it might sound a bit strong, but would you say being an artist is a bit of a mental struggle? Would you say it's quite a tough act?
It is tough. It's, you know, it's been a struggle all the way along mentally. You know, it's been a real challenge, and it's only been in recent years that I've had a mentor, and it's having a mentor that has enabled me to sort of offload, and for things to happen the other way, that they suggest, she suggests what the best way of going about things is, and that takes a whole load of pressure off, especially in these last few years when things have gone on a much more upward curve, and almost the challenges become even greater as you do so.
Yeah. I think we're going to have to name the lovely Leslie, aren't we? Leslie Sam's your mentor. And you're right, she's been there for so many artists, and definitely I know she has for you and myself at times, to just keep things together, which is so, and again, just reaching out, getting the support and getting the help we need is so valuable, isn't it? So absolutely. For everyone to realise that we need that at all. So it really is, it's lovely to hear, you know, how you get that balance and how you've got that support around you, because you are the driving force, aren't you? You're the one, and that must come with a bit of pressure as well. Do you feel sometimes the pressure because it's on you?
Yeah, I would say, I think we had our best year last year, and with that, having that best year, we've taken on another assistant part-time, and it comes round to the end of the year, you have Christmas and New Year starts again, and well, I personally feel even more pressure because there's the feeling that, oh my gosh, we've got to do that again. And it's that sort of faith that, or lack of it sometimes, that the sculptures are going to sell and all that side of it. But in the end, I've just got to focus on what I want to do and hopefully have the ideas and put them out in clay form and allow people to see what I come up with. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Having the faith in yourself and your ability, definitely, you know, and also just trusting, like we said earlier, you know, the universe provides inspiration. It does, you know, there's a lot around us to support us, isn't it? And having that faith and feeling your worth and value as well, isn't it? To just remember, you know, how important you are and how important it is to look after you in the middle of all of this. It's sometimes not easy to juggle that around, isn't it? So I've got to say, to be honest, Jonathan, talking to you is so beautiful. People say to me I've got a calming, relaxing voice, but talking to you, I find your voice so peaceful and calm. I just think I can't imagine you stressed, actually, but your voice is so beautiful. It resonates with me so beautifully. So I'm sure that everybody will want to find out
bit more about you and look at your work and everything. So can you just let everyone know how they can see your work and how they can find out more about you and get in touch if they want to?
Sure. Well, my website's jonathanhateley.com, JONATHAN, and then it's HATELEY. On Instagram, I'm Jonathan Sculpts, and on Facebook, Jonathan Hateley Sculpture. And
Brilliant.
it'd be great to have people follow me.
Yes, and you've got a YouTube channel as well, I believe, haven't you?
A YouTube channel as well, yeah, which I put a new video on this week.
Lovely, lovely. So lots of places where people can find you. And I think as well, I don't know if I'm right or wrong in saying this, you hinted a little bit earlier about something that you're working on, which is so exciting for me, something called Moonlight. Is that right? Are you working on something?
Moonlight, yeah. I mean, cross fingers that it all works out all right, because you never know, you have to take a mold of a clay and until that mold's made, you're kind of hoping that it's all going to come out okay.
Oh, I don't know how you cope with the pressure.
It's along the lines of sunset and sunrise.
Oh, really looking forward to that.
So she's sort of going to be emanating light with the circles.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, I can't wait to see that. So I'm not putting any extra pressure on you, but I can't wait. So, how beautiful, how lovely. So I've really, really enjoyed talking to you today. I knew that I would, and seeing your lovely work and finding out a bit more about your process. It's beautiful. So thank you so much for that. I'd just like to end, as I ask everybody, if you've got some words of wisdom that you'd like to share with everybody about how life is for you or what you'd like people to know.
Oh, gosh. Well, as I think I pointed to earlier, that I certainly one of the first sculptures that I did in this sort of style was one, and it too was sort of based on the figure reflecting nature and being a tree. And I'd read in a Deepak Chopra book about everything being made from the same stuff, and it was at a time when I was reading lots of self-help books, road less travelled and things like that. But the one that really made a difference to me at the time was called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers.
Yes.
And I think that kind of says it all for me, because I do really feel fear quite a lot. And having a mentor, that's what's been really good in helping you through those fears and actually doing them anyway. And so far anyway, it's turned out well for me.
And it will continue, I'm sure. I love that, because you're so right. People need to know that message. And it is a book that I'm not sure how long ago it was hugely popular, but it is so true, isn't it? Feel the fear, that's okay, but do it anyway, and you're a prime example of that. So I love that. So thank you for sharing that with us. And as I say, I've enjoyed so much talking to you today. It's been wonderful. So thank you very much. And I encourage everyone to go and have a look at Jonathan's artwork. I know you've got stuff out in galleries and there's different places, isn't there? But everyone can find out, can't they, on your website where things are.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thanks, Nadine.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Calmer Self podcast. Please rate and review. And if you want support, advice, accountability and inspiration to make the changes you need to manage your stress and live your life with ease and joy, check out the Calmer Self Facebook page. There's also more information on LinkedIn, Nadine award-winning changemaker, and please visit my website www.calmerself.co.uk.